Alright, so let's get into the process of how I make the coasters. I bought a tool at Amazon. It costs around $20. It sits on top of the leather and it has a little razor on the outside of it, and you just spin it on the leather and it cuts in, eventually making its way to the end, to the flesh side. After I make these circles, I then take this tool like a groover and I groove a gap around there, so if you could see, some of the leather is already coming out of there, so there's pretty sharp. So the reason why I make this groover is so when I make my stitch holes and then put the stitch in, the stitch actually lays a little bit flatter with the leather and it's not bumpy. And then I take my hammer and I just hammer down the stitches a little bit so it's nice and flush. So yeah, so that's the process of stitching, and then yeah, let's check it out. I have a piece here that I've already kind of started. So in this line, the reason why I'm only using this 3-prong, well, it's a broken 4-prong, but I use the 3-prong because I have to go around in a circle. So I just lay it inside the line, and then I just hammer it down. Sometimes you could actually use wax, and you put wax on the end of this guy right here. I got some wax here. So this is 100% pure beeswax. So sometimes you could just put this on the edge of your tool, and then it makes it a little easier for you to pull out. I don't see a big difference. It just takes a little bit of elbow grease. Smash those lines, smash those holes in there, man. Then after I'm done, I have like probably another 10 to go. After I'm done these, then we're gonna go into the stitching. So now I want to talk to you about saddle stitching. So I use this thread. I get this from Tandy Leather. It's a nice thick waxed leather, or nice waxed thread, nice and thick. So the way I tie this in is not tying a knot, but actually do this. I go through the thread twice. I take this little strand and I pull it. And because this is wax thread, this is going to actually stick. Well, the other thing I use is a stitching clamp. I don't know if that's the technical term for it, but so what it does is you put the lever down and put your project right in here. This long part actually goes underneath your bottom, and then you're ready to go and saddle stitch. So let's get to it. I'm going to show you up close. So I have my leather in the clamp. What I do is I put a microfiber cloth so it doesn't make marks in the leather. Take my needle, and what I'm going to do is I find a hole. Here, let me set this up a little bit better. Okay, so I find a hole and the one next to it. I pull that all the way through, and what I do is I make sure that these are the same length. What I also do is when I pull through, I take this one that is coming towards me. This thread here, I drop, I pull this one, I put it through the last hole I went through, or the first hole I went through, sorry. And then I pull that all the way through. And then you just tighten her up. Go to the next hole. And then I do the same. I go behind, come through that same hole. Same hole. So as you can see, this is pretty flush, but after I'm done stitching this up and pulling it tight, I'm actually going to hammer this so it goes even closer to the leather. Alright, let's do this in fast motion. last part, there's like a couple holes here that are left. So this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna show you. So this is how I finish off my stitching. So I'm in here. Okay, so I'm gonna go to this last hole that's right there. Oops, sorry, right there. So I go in, and then I'm gonna come back 3. So this is actually gonna lock the stitch in. Okay. Yeah, it's kind of hard to get through sometimes, because you're going back in the same hole that the thread was through. So this is the third one. Okay. Now I just want to show you a close-up of this. Okay, once you go back here 3 times, you're going to want to cut this very short. Okay? So about this much is left. Take your lighter, you're going to melt it, you're going to make it come back on itself. Okay, so I have all 20 done. They're all stitched up. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start hammering these. So here, I'll show you how I do that. So we just got the coasters back from being laser burned. Pretty nice. I like how these look. They're pretty awesome. So now we're going to show you a little clip, and it's probably fast mode, of what it looks like, the laser, and then we're gonna go and dye this baby right now. Okay, I got my glubbers on. Right now I'm going to be using Gel Antique. This is a medium brown. So I'll get my dauber nice and full of brown. And then what you do is you just go in circle motion. And then you wipe off the excess. Then when you wipe off the excess, it gives this nice rustic look. So there you go. These are all dyed. Yeah, and then the next step, we got to do the edges, and let's do that. All right, so for the next part of the project, we're going to use a Dremel tool with a little sanding block on it. And I usually set it to maybe around a 3. So I take this little beveler and I actually go around and take off that little edge. And I'll show you the reason why I take off this edge, because I have to burnish this with water and sand it down before I can put on edge paint. Okay, now that I've beveled all the edges, I just take a emery board and I just kind of round out the edges a little bit more, try to get the fiber down. Seems to work for me. Alright, so for this next step, then we're going to do the water burnishing. So we're just going to take this cup full of water, dip our fingers in it, and just go around here, get it a little bit wet. And then you're gonna take your burnishing tool and you're gonna find the slot that works the best. So I'm gonna take this guy right here. Yeah, this one. So all you do is back and forth. And what you're gonna get is a nice, smooth, burnished edge. So the rough part, and then now you can see the burnished edge. And that's really smooth. So the next step I'm gonna be doing is I'm going to be doing the edges. So I'm gonna be making it look that worn effect. All right, so here we go. This roller pen, it dips into the ink, it goes on to the tip here, and it just rolls right onto your leather work. So you dip in, get a generous amount, and then you just start rolling on. Okay, there you go, edge paint. But you can see it's still grainy. For this kind of project, I like that. Okay, so we're starting to get towards the end of the project here, and what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be putting on this cork. This cork is pretty cool. It is self-adhesive, so it's going to stay on there. I tried to peel it off one time, and you can't get it off. So I just make sure she's lined up. There we go. So stick it pretty good. Stick it, stick it, stick it. And there you have yourself a coaster. Alright, so how I make my maker mark on this. I put it on the cork. So what I do is I make my maker stamp. I need some paper. And what I do is I spray my maker mark. And I get it nice and wet. And then I stamp. And that's how I get my maker mark on there. So instead of using a rubber stamp or burning it in or pounding it in, that's what I use. And then now for the finishing touch, I'm going to be using Resolene. This is also by Fiebing's. This gives it a nice gloss, and it seals it in, makes it waterproof. You should get her on there. I'm going to make sure that I get it into the stitches. This will seal it in. Okay, so that's pretty much dry. Like, it just doesn't take too long. Take the soft part of the cloth and you just buff it. Jimmy buff it. So it's got a nice gloss to it. So these ones here, of course, are flat because of the dye, and then you put her on, she has a nice glisten. And that's going to be waterproofed. You can put bottles on it that are wet and should not penetrate this Resolene.